and welcome to another episode presented by yours truly, Cryptids Roost. Please be so kind as to throat punch the like button, and don't forget to smack the arse of the subscription button as well. This will help with YouTube's algorithm and will help promote the channel more. If you would like to support the channel and help make it grow, all donations can be made to paypal.me/cryptidsroost and would be gratefully received. Don't forget to check out the merch store. All the links are listed below. So grab your coffee, sit back and enjoy the show. My job requires me to clean up Roadkill and hunt Cryptids, Part 4. This fantastic series is written by author Jojo, a wonderful author over on Reddit's NoSleep. Despite having work in the morning, after jotting down the events of last night, I spent a good amount of time just holding the revolver and twisting the silver between my fingers. I went over my ever-expanding knowledge of cryptids to try to decipher what could be sending a message to me. In the time I've been working, not once has that work followed me home. Animals don't tend to hold grudges, and while cryptids' behaviour can be unique, I've never heard of something like this. Not only was the culprit smart enough to target me specifically, but it must have been watching me for a while. It also had to have a ridiculous amount of speed or have an alternative mode of transportation. Intangible cryptids are capable of disappearing and reappears, but are typically bound to one area. Between the time I parked and the time I returned to the truck last night, maybe something around the speed of a marwolf could cover the distance. Bigger maybe. Lost in my thought, I failed to notice the sun creeping through my window, so my biggest threat tonight was a complete lack of sleep. The telephone ringing nearly threw me off my chair, but I was pleasantly surprised to discover some other poor soul was going to have to clean up what was left of the contaminant mess. Hopefully the marwolf didn't decide to stick around. I would be on highway patrol, which was a godsend. I drove from spot to spot doing the usual, except this time around I was skeptical of every vehicle that followed me around too many turns. I kept pulling over just to see if they would drive past me. They all did. Around halfway through my shift, I stopped into a diner to grab a quick cup of coffee. I'd need several to stay awake. As I was sitting at the table, a waitress walked over to me and placed a cup of coffee down and a plate stacked with pancakes. When she noticed the bewildered look on my face, she mentioned that someone had covered the bill for me. I questioned her, but she didn't get a good look at him, only remarking the man had told her that I had been through a long night. I started scanning the diner, but she said he left right after paying for the food. Didn't order anything for himself. Against my better judgment, I obeyed the rumble from my abdomen and ate the pancakes. Whoever this man was, he was trying to send a message. If he wanted to kill me, he knew where I lived. At least I know it's not some cryptid. Maybe he was at the Calvia site and saw me pull in. Did he orchestrate the infection? To what ends would someone take out several blocks of life like that? The alarm on my phone alerted me when my break was done, and I quickly poured the coffee down my throat. A tingling burn went all the way to my chest. The train of thought I had to end there. A decent haul of bodies went by without any more issues, and then my shift was over. I had just enough time to head home and take a power nap, keeping the radio next to my head. I drifted off to the static. The universe took some form of mercy on me, and I didn't get a call for another 3 hours. I didn't wake up feeling refreshed and renewed when the chatter on the radio woke me, but I had gotten enough to get me through my next hunt. Some mansion had a cryptid of sorts haunting its premises. My employer gave me all the known details and I gathered up my supplies. I didn't need much this time around, just some heat-resistant clothing and a breathing apparatus. After a brief delegation, I decided to leave the Magnum behind. If I needed a gun, my shotgun was always around. Tires spun and I headed out. Before I knew it, I was sitting outside the mansion. I got out and made my way to the house. The door was locked, but that was only a momentary issue. Walking inside felt like I had stepped into a furnace. Only moments after entering and I was sweating. My grip on my shotgun felt loose as beads of sweat ran between my palm and my gun. I could see a decent amount of the house from where I was standing, and what I needed to find wasn't on the ground floor. When I made my way upstairs, I was met with a cryptid. It stood facing me, not because I had shown up though. It likely had been standing there for a while. Salem children. It wouldn't attack me, but if I stayed in the heat it generated for too long, I might as well have fallen victim to a house fire. These poor souls are said to be the physical manifestation of hatred felt by children being burned for witch accusations. I was a bit lost though. Normally they only surface when the ground is being disturbed or there is a similar magic around. The house looked like it was there for a number of years and there was no signs of something like remodeling. The Salem child and I locked eyes for a few moments. Its eyes are nearly hypnotic. They're as wide as tennis balls and devoid of any ocular features. They only have the appearance of embers, like when you blow on wood to feed the embers on a campfire. The fire in his eyes was replicated along its black ashen skin. The flames ran through its veins, replacing its blood. Otherwise, it looked like a normal child, coming up about 3 feet and a little pot-bellied. It calmly focused its gaze on me. I gave it a nod and began walking from room to room. The only way to kill the Salem child is to kill its source of power, similar to a Calvia. The house remained perfectly intact despite the heat, and nothing was out of place. I didn't even consider that I had spotted a pair of cars parked in the driveway. I didn't take that into account until I walked into one of the children's rooms to see the child and his father huddled in the corner. The first thing you should know is that you have to deal with loss. Whether you hear the news that one of your fellow hunters had lost in an encounter, or you held sympathy for the cryptids, as I did. The hardest though is when you can't save the victims. You're either not fast enough or the circumstance was inevitable. It's hard to deal with either way. This time around I just wasn't fast enough. The Salem child must have appeared in here, and unaware that it wouldn't attack them, the father sheltered his kid in an attempt to save him. They were roasted before they even knew it. Their bodies resembled that of a crumbling statue, a stark reminder that, like last night, I didn't have much time. Even with all my precautions, I couldn't stay for longer than 30 minutes. I had to find the source, so I swiftly checked from room to room. It's not always obvious, but the source will generally have a magical vibe to it. It could be anything from a crystal to a spell book. Walking through the house, I glanced at their family photos, the father, his son, and the wife, who I hadn't seen yet. She was in all the photos, smiling wider than anyone. They were happy, and at the time I didn't know what she would do if she came home after all this. I was debating in my mind if I should stay in that scenario or take off before she even got home. Everywhere I walked, the Salem child would follow me, small flecks of fire drifting from between his dark lips. The longer it took, the more frustrated I became. I could normally keep my cool, but the damn heat was unbearable. Even the basement had nothing of note in it. Thankfully, the family was rather neat and tidy, so I didn't have to sift through boxes of knickknacks. Something wasn't sitting right with me. I had dealt with a Salem child once before, and it was pretty cut and dry hunt. I popped into some construction site, found the artifact, and destroyed it. That was it. I had a few rooms left to check on the first floor, but as some of the gears began to turn, I made my way back upstairs. Leaning in, I took a closer look at the family photos. The mother, while happy, gave off a very specific vibe. I looked back at the Salem child, knowing my sorrow had not yet finished. I found a small string and pulled down on it. A ladder dropped down, leading up to the attic. I only peeked in to confirm my suspicions. I hate being right sometimes. It was dark, but I could see several spell books and half-burned candles littering the wooden floor. I saw half of a circle drawn on the floor with various symbols placed inside. The source, despite all this, wasn't in the attic. Climbing down, I found a window that looked out upon the backyard, and my heart sank. Looking back at the child, I thought of the trauma that had put his anger here. It's going to be up to her. I hope she sets you free. I'm not a man of many words, and I knew I was essentially talking to myself. Maybe I was just passing the buck. With the Salem child casually following my movements, I made my way to the backyard, or the field that was a backyard. It was massive and free of any eyesores until the tree line a few dozen feet away. I saw her right away, her hair frizzy and baggy clothing. She had a shovel in her hands and was frantically digging at the dirt. Several other holes told me she'd been at it for a while. The back door swung closed after me and the Salem child stepped off the patio and onto the grass. The wife perked her head up when the door slammed and found me. She'd been crying. Her makeup was an even greater mess than her hair. "I'll find it. It's here somewhere," she stuttered out. I don't know how or why, but she seemed to know the reason why I was visiting. Perhaps it was that I was there at all, letting a burning child follow me around. I didn't know how to respond, and I'm not much for conversation. But if I left her to her own devices, she'd make matters worse. She too was sweating, but it wasn't from the heat. No, she couldn't feel the radiating sauna just yet. "You're not going to find the source," I remarked. The shotgun was rattling around in my shaking hands. "Because it's you," I stated before she could retort. She had been practicing magic and had the unfortunate mishap of practicing it near the buried bodies of a child that had been burned alive when humans were still learning about the oddities of the world. To my surprise, and I suppose relief, she became somber and calm. The three of us stood in silence until I bent over, placing the shotgun onto the grass. There was one more exchange of glances, and I walked away from the two of them. There was a pit in my throat as I walked towards Elvis. The doors swung open, and I sat inside, listening to the quiet the night had to offer. My fingers grasped onto a small golden ring hanging around my chest, knuckles turning white while I tried to sink my feelings down as far as I could. I tell you this because I want you to know how important it is to remain as human as possible, even when the chips are down. The night was silent for what felt like forever, and just as I was worried the Salem child was going to run rampant, or that I was going to have to do something unspeakable, a low cry interrupted my thoughts, and the tears welled up in my eyes. It took many long breaths in and out to stop myself from rocking back and forth, because I still had a job to do. I once again left my truck and paced my way around the house to the backyard. I couldn't bring myself to look at her. I avoided it as much as possible. Scooping up the Salem child, whose heating had now dissipated, the furnace in his eyes going out. His face now was just a black outline against the night. I'd leave the shotgun with her. It was too close. When the police find her, at least they'll have a rational cause of death for her. Relieved to see that while I was away, my truck hadn't been messed with. I loaded everything up and placed the child gently on the bench seat wrapped in blankets. It felt wrong to just throw him in the truck bed like Roadkill. I turned the truck on and pulled away from the house, and left the whole scene behind, all while ignoring the bright yellow eyes I had seen hiding in the tree line. I just wasn't in the mood for anything else. The road back was long, lonely, and it smelled far too much like ash. I took it upon myself after getting home to dig a grave for the child and placed him inside. not only for his sake, but the family as well. I was never under the impression that I was going to save every soul that I came across, but it never fails to get under my skin. I'm far too tired, physically and emotionally, to go over anything else, and I just wanted to get to sleep. I hope you all sleep well.
Wow, that was a fantastic story. And if you enjoyed listening to this chronicle, be sure to pop over to the author's Reddit profile, author Jojo, and drop them a line, or even give them a glowing review. The link to their Reddit profile will be below in the description. And if you enjoyed my narration, then please feel free to like and share the video, leave a comment below, and don't forget to hit the subscribe button and tap the notification bell and then select all. That way you'll receive all notifications each time I upload a new video. Please be so kind as to visit our merchandise store and grab yourself a t-shirt, face mask, mug, hoodie, or whatever else grabs your fancy. There's plenty there to choose from. The link will be in the description. And if you'd like an honourable mention, send in a snapshot of yourself with your purchase from the merch store, and I'll feature it in one of my videos. You can submit your stories and encounters to cryptidsroost@gmail.com. And if you wish to remain anonymous, that's fine with me. Now, I've also got a Facebook group, Twitter, Reddit, and you'll also find me on Discord. And if you'd like to support this channel and help make it grow, my PayPal is paypal.me/cryptidsroost. Again, that'll also be below. And don't forget, where fear is, happiness is not.